Hello and happy Friday. Excited to be here. Excited to be teaching, I guess, once again on my own today, this week. And as most of you saw, this week's topic is amino acids. So a super, super important topic. Mostly because amino acids, that pretty much covers, just generally speaking, proteins. And that's exactly what I want to get into. What are amino acids? Is it the same as just saying protein? What's the difference between branched-chain amino acids, essential amino acids? What is leucine threshold? And so on. So I think particularly when it comes to protein and amino acids, there are so many different terms that are being thrown around, and just because they sound fancy, we're like, oh, I need that. So especially when it comes to like BCAAs or EAAs and like which one to take and when. So that's kind of what I want to not necessarily bust today, but what I want to provide a little bit more clarity on today, so that after watching this, you walk away knowing, okay, I should be paying attention to XYZ, I should be supplementing with XYZ, and just have a little bit more clarity on everything. So again, what are amino acids? That's what we're going to be talking about. What are the differences? Which ones are the most important ones and why? So it's not going to be a super, super long chat today. I think if there's anything that we can preface, it's just generally, yes, protein is important, and we want to get a good variety when it comes to proteins, especially if we're plant-based, but also when we are omnivores, I guess, it also kind of matters that we complement the amino acids themselves. So amino acids overall, what are they? They are the molecules that combine to form proteins, i.e. the building blocks of our bodies. So essentially, proteins are made up of amino acids. We could almost use them interchangeably, but amino acids is just like a smaller form of the proteins, essentially. And because there are several different ones, we just don't say, eat your amino acids, eat your proteins, because there's other things with that as well. But given that they are the building blocks of our bodies, you can also figure that, yes, they are incredibly important. Like your skin, your joints, your tendons, your muscles, and so on. Everything is made up of amino acids. So important for growth, important for repair, even if you just have a scratch, if you're sick in any kind of way, but also important for nutrient transport, as it says on here. So kind of getting things from A to B, flushing things out, transporting hormones even. So lots and lots of functions. You will soon see that without amino acids, or without consuming amino acids, we cannot survive and most certainly not thrive. There are three different categories of amino acids: essential ones, non-essential ones, and conditional ones, which you probably haven't heard of, but I will shed some light on that soon, and you'll see why you probably haven't heard of them. Let's start with the most important category, the essential amino acids. So they are called essential amino acids because the body cannot make them itself. It must come from food. Therefore, they are essential to be consumed. There are 9 essential amino acids. You don't need to remember all the names. It might be helpful remembering that there are 9 different ones: histidine, isoleucine, leucine, lysine, methionine, struggling with this one, phenylalanine, threonine, tryptophan, you've probably heard of that one, and valine. Foods with complete EAAs, generally speaking, animal protein, so beef, poultry, fish, eggs, dairy, but also soy, quinoa, and buckwheat, which is important for those amongst you, especially following a plant-based diet. What do I mean by complete essential amino acids? So all of these foods, they contain all the 9 essential amino acids. That's why they're called complete. Other things that contain protein, so let's say pea protein or rice protein, etc., they don't naturally contain all 9, But of course, over the course of your day, if you know, in the morning you have something with pea protein, in the afternoon you have something with rice protein, and so on, and over the course of the day you kind of accumulate all 9 essential amino acids, you still complete the amino acid profile. So back in the day, people used to say, oh, you need to always, in every single meal, you need to create a complete amino acid profile if you are a plant-based person. So always make sure that you mix, you have like at least soy in your meal, or in the other meal that you have quinoa, or if you don't have any of these 3 plant-based sources, that you know, mix and match so that it exactly equates to these 9 essential amino acids with the incomplete protein sources. This is actually not true. This has been debunked, and we have now found out or learned that sort of as long as throughout your entire day you're consuming all 9 essential amino acids, or even if, you know, one day you might not need them all, but then the next day you do, you can still have an optimal amino acid profile. So do not stress out too much on that. However, later on when it comes to supplementation, I will mention, or I guess add on to this point again. So what are the branch-chain amino acids? They are a subgroup of the essential amino acids. So as I said, we have 9 essential amino acids, and 3 of those, valine, leucine, and isoleucine, are considered branch-chain amino acids. Why are they called that? Because they have, you know, because of what the chemical structure looks like. It's essentially, I'm not going to say, you know, this is exactly what it's made out of. It doesn't really play a role, as with most things in nutrition, or with most, I guess, terms. They are named after their chemical structure. So branch-chained, you can picture them, but I guess most important thing, we have proteins. Proteins are made up of amino acids. Amino acids are categorized into essential and non-essential, and amongst the essential ones we have 3 branch-chain amino acids. Why are they so important? Well, because of their branch-chained structure, they have some sort of special characteristics for the body, and have shown unique properties in terms of stimulating muscle protein synthesis, and just generally have like enhanced health properties. So those 3, especially in combination with each other, are kind of called the Holy Trilogy. They do the hardest or most important amount of work, which doesn't mean that the other 6 are not important. Again, they are still essential. They are just, these 3 are just kind of the powerhouses. And because of that, a lot of people have started just supplementing with the branch-chain amino acids, because they're like, oh, okay, so BCAAs, because they think, okay, if I'm supplementing, I might as well get the powerhouses. However, in my opinion, and many people in the field also say that if you're supplementing, if you want to have that kind of insurance policy, you know, I really want to make sure that I'm covering all my essential amino acids, then I personally usually recommend an EAA, an essential amino acid supplement, because even though you might be consuming smaller quantities of the BCAAs, of the powerhouses, at least you are really making sure you're covering all 9, because the other 6 are actually still really important, right? So the general consensus is, though, that you don't necessarily, or you don't need to supplement with either one, with EAAs or BCAAs, if you are consuming enough protein through your food. So as long as you are reaching the absolute minimum of, let's say, 0.7 or 0.8 grams of protein per pound of lean body mass per day, you do not need to supplement with BCAAs or EAAs, because you should be covering all of those through your diet. I'll touch on exceptions later on, but I guess I can preface it just a little bit in terms of logical thinking. If you are injured, if you are sick, even if you are really stressed, you are gonna have, or your body might appreciate even more building blocks, even more of an optimized nutrient transport, and even more support with immunity. And therefore, it can actually be beneficial, or it's kind of like, you know, if you have the extra cash and you perhaps even enjoy the flavor of a BCAA drink or EAA drink, you know, why not? It's kind of the same sense of I'm always taking a multivitamin type of thing, which I am actually not. But, you know, if some people say that just for insurance policies, I'm going to take, make sure that I'm covering all my bases. So I guess just to sum it up, generally speaking, if you are hitting your protein intake, you do not need to supplement with either one. If you choose to supplement as an insurance policy or because your current life situation demands it, particularly some plant-based people might just say, hey, I'm not actually 100% sure. I'm always consuming soy, buckwheat, or quinoa, and also I don't have the mental capacity to, you know, mix and match throughout the day. I really want to make sure that I am getting all of them. I'm going to supplement. Then, you know, I'd say an EAA where you're literally covering all 9 essential amino acids over a BCAA. Yes, so much into that. Now let's break that down. Actually, before we break that down even further, let's cover the 11 non-essential amino acids that are still beneficial. I mean, they are still protein, so they can still be used for muscle protein synthesis. However, if you're not consuming them, your body can make them themselves. And I'm not going to read all of those. You can see the names. For example, glutamine. You've probably heard of that one, or tyrosine, or cysteine, or glutamic acid. You might have heard of all of those. And I have highlighted specific ones. Why have I highlighted them? So some of them, these particular ones, become conditional in terms of stress or illnesses, which means the body struggles more to make them itself when you are ill. It tends to put more emphasis into healing the body than creating those essential amino acids. So in terms of illness and stress, protein is even more, or consuming protein, and therefore the chances that you are consuming non-essential amino acids as well is even more important. I hope that makes sense. So generally speaking, the body can make them, has the ability to make all of these 11 amino acids. However, when you're stressed or ill, it kind of puts that onto like back order, not quite main priority, and it's going to be easier if you definitely consume protein or amino acids through your diet. I've actually already touched on to complete and versus incomplete. This is kind of on the wrong slide. Just again, complete means when we have all 9 essential amino acids. So again, it's on the wrong slide. And incomplete means if we do not have all 9 essential amino acids in one food. Okay, let's touch on leucine threshold. Leucine, as I just mentioned previously, is one of the 3 branch-chain amino acids, one of the 3 powerhouses. And it's actually been highlighted as possibly the most important amino acid out there. There are supplements just for leucine. So again, just to break it down once more, we have protein. Proteins are made up of amino acids. Amino acids are either essential or non-essential. Amongst the essential amino acids, we also have the 3 powerhouses, the branch-chain amino acids. And amongst those 3 branch-chain amino acids, leucine is most likely the most powerful one. Why is it the most powerful one? Because it's kind of considered the master key to a master switch. So if you think about muscle growth, always, our body is either building up muscle or breaking it down. There is no such thing as the body not doing anything with your muscle. If you're not using your muscle, your body is going to think, okay, and that doesn't mean that you constantly need to be working out, but if your body currently doesn't think have a training stimulus to respond to, you haven't trained in forever, then it's like, well, you don't really need this muscle right now, I'm going to break it down. So that is called catabolic. And if you have set a muscle stimulus, you're training a couple of times a week, you are eating enough protein, then it wants your muscle to grow, because it's like, next time that you train, I want you to be ready for that. I want your muscle to be stronger. So what controls this? It's a switch or an enzyme called mTOR. I don't actually, off the top of my head, know the entire name for this word. It's a really, really long word. So apologies for not inserting that here. But yeah, let's just go with mTOR, easy to remember. If you think of that as your car ignition, right? So you have the car ignition. Only if mTOR is switched, the car is going to rev up and you can drive away. What is able to turn this, or to I guess switch this mTOR on, turn this mTOR on, is leucine. Now you can picture leucine threshold in the sense of, if you only have half a key, it might be the right key, but it's only half, so it's not going to turn. And there needs to be a certain force to that as well. Because of that, people are saying, this is somewhat debated as to per meal, but because of that, obviously, again, considering leucine is essential, so we need a key in order to switch this. But whether or not you can kind of like accumulate half a key early in the day and then half a key later in the day, this might actually also be possible. Nonetheless, people say that you are optimizing your muscle protein synthesis if you have the whole key right away in the ignition at the same time. So that means consuming a certain amount of leucine per meal is going to optimize your muscle protein synthesis throughout the day, as opposed to only turning the key maybe once a day. Right. So I guess in order to make that even more logical, or the hypothesis is, as you can read here, that a certain amount of leucine from a high quality protein source is required or is optimal to hit this threshold. For most people, this threshold is at about 2 to 4 grams of leucine per meal, which translates into, of course, this depends on, what kind of protein source you're eating. It's not generally, okay, every protein has 2 to 4 grams of leucine per meal, but it generally means amongst animal sources, this would be about 20 to 30 grams of high quality protein. So again, in order to hit this hypothetical leucine threshold in one meal, about 20 to 30 grams would be about 2 grams of leucine per meal. If you are a larger individual, or if you are a little bit older, it might be closer to 4 grams. If you are younger, and especially in our teens and so on, it doesn't matter quite as much. I have actually written a blog about leucine threshold, so if this is something that you're really curious about, please go and check it out. On the website, you can search for specific blog topics as well. But for the majority of people, what does that mean? We want to consume at least 20 to 30 grams of protein per meal. This is another reason why you actually want to spread out your protein throughout the entire day and not just 80 grams in one sitting and then 10 grams here, 5 grams there, 20 grams here. It is more likely that you're turning this master switch, this mTOR, muscle protein synthesis, if you are spreading out your protein intake throughout the day. What does that also mean? It points towards, if you are plant-based, and you're not necessarily consuming leucine or complete protein such as soy, quinoa, or buckwheat in each one of your meals, it could be beneficial that in those other meals you are drinking an EAA shake before or during or whatever, potentially. This is just, very, very small optimization level. Again, it is not required, generally speaking, as long as you're still hitting your protein. However, this could optimize muscle protein synthesis to a small extent. I just want to emphasize that, and not that you guys are taking it as in everybody or in every meal that I'm not necessarily consuming animal protein. I have to drink an EAA shake. That's not what this is saying. So yes, please, if you want to know the details about leucine threshold, mTOR, etc., please go and check out that blog post. I guess I've basically already covered all these points here under application. Most important overarching thing, protein, hitting your protein goal is incredibly important. Spreading out protein throughout your day is also incredibly important. Do pay attention to the essential amino acids, but the majority of the time, supplementation is not necessary. However, it's also most likely not going to be hurtful. So instead of you drinking some other flavored beverage, let's say Gatorade or whatever, because you're not hitting your hydration target, you could consider changing that to an EAA just to be on the safe side, sort of thing. Or if you're recognizing, hey, my immune function is low, I'm sick, I'm injured, I'm recovering from surgery or whatever, could add an EAA. Or if you are plant-based and you don't necessarily want to constantly think about, is this a complete protein or not? Have I had a complete protein today or not? Then supplementing with EAAs could also be beneficial. Yes, that's that's basically the main points. Just generally speaking, when it comes to protein, not just amino acids, as you might know from personal experience, or generally speaking, increase protein intake somewhat slowly. We don't need to go from 60 grams a day to 150 grams in a day. When it comes to personal preference and digestion, yes, there are things that, some people out there might be dairy sensitive, so do pay attention to that. Just because I'm saying here, oh yes, dairy is a complete protein, it can be beneficial for your muscle protein synthesis, but your gut is telling you otherwise, listen to that. Or of course, personal preference, if you're like, well, okay, I know that animal protein would make it easier to hit all my essential amino acids, but I truly believe from the bottom of my heart that following a more plant-based diet is better for me or the environment or whatever, then by all means go ahead, but take this into consideration and consider supplementation. In terms of increasing protein overall, that's what I mean here with usually the effects of positive effects of increasing or consuming sufficient protein. They do usually show rather quickly in the sense of satiation, more energy throughout the day, and less cravings, or even when it comes to your cycle. And as you just learned, amino acids are really, really important for nutrient transport, and they are actually also incredibly important for mental health. So if you are struggling with mental health and you're somebody who is not hitting your protein intake regularly, please take this as a hint to aim even more for higher protein levels. You could even benefit from, going above 1 gram per pound of body weight, or like up to 1.2 grams per pound of body weight. When it comes to mental health, amino acids are incredibly helpful. But yeah, if you have any questions about protein, amino acids, supplementing with EAAs, BCAAs, etc., or even perhaps leucine supplementation, as it used to be a bit of a trend in the 90s or whatever, please feel free to share it with me either in the comments below or simply by sending me a message. I always like to hear from you. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Friday and a lovely weekend ahead. Thanks so much for tuning in.